Oh, yeah?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us at this MPO meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order. This is the Laredo Urban Transportation Study Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Committee meeting. It's being held. It's 1:36, more or less, 1:36 p.m. Today is January the 22nd, 2019. We're meeting here at City Council Chambers at 1110 Houston Street, obviously here in Laredo, Texas. So, yes, can I have your roll call, Ms. Guerra? Mrs. Guerra? Present.
Lieutenant Judge Donald Quirina,
Present, ma'am.
Councilmember George Ogden, Councilmember Roberto Valle, County Commissioner Jesse Gonzalez, County Commissioner John Galo,
Present.
Texas District Engineer Mr. David M. Salazar,
Present.
and Texas District Administrator Ms. Melissa Montemayor.
Present.
For the record, you do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum, so we proceed. We have citizens' comments. I don't see anyone that signed up. If you wish to speak at this point, please come up to the lectern there, and you have 3 minutes. I don't see anyone approaching, so we'll proceed to the next item, and that's item 4. That's approval of the minutes for the 4A, approval of the minutes for the meeting held on December the 17th, 2018.
So moved that there's no amendments or any additions or anything. Second, if there are no
Okay.
amendments.
And again, the motion is heard and seconded. Discussion. None heard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? None heard. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item is B, receive public testimony and approve resolution number MPO 2019-01 adopting the payment, bridge, and travel time reliability performance measures and targets established by TxDOT as required by Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act of 2015, which is FAST, which are as follows, and then it lists several. Who's going to sponsor this? TxDOT, I presume.
Well, it's a joint effort. The FAST Act requires that that TxDOT or that performance measures and targets be incorporated into our planning processes. In this case, TxDOT identifies the performance measures and targets, and then the MPOs have 180 days to adopt those targets or to establish their own. In this case, the resolution is adopting TxDOT's targets.
How often does this occur? Is this periodic every so many years, you know?
This is the first time that the performance measures and targets for these, for pavement, bridge, and travel are being adopted, but safety, the next item that you'll see in your packet, it looks like it's gonna be a yearly item, and this is the second time that we adopt the new targets.
Okay, so in essence, we'll survey and then we'll worry who pays, or how does that work?
Well, the targets, the performance measures and targets are indicators of how well the network is performing. Just taking the first one, the first measure, you'll see the measure of pavement on the interstate highway. They have a percentage of good condition and the percentage in poor condition, and you'll see the targets for year 2022. And that's what we're shooting for in our planning process if we adopt these. And what happens is that you go forward and you plan or select your projects to hopefully meet these targets.
Okay, yeah. Do we have any questions or comments from the members? No? Okay. Okay, do we need I guess we need it's a public testimony, so I guess it's a public hearing. Yeah, it's a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this item? Or against? For or against?
We need to open it then?
Do we need yeah, I guess we'll open, yeah, I guess we'll go. Yeah,
Motion to open up the public hearing? Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to open public hearing. All those in favor of opening the,
Aye.
as a public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
All those against? None heard. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're in the public hearing. Again, anyone wishing to speak for or against? For or against? For or against? Do we keep it open? Yeah, I don't
Well,
see.
This item came before the commission last month, and there was a 20-day public review and comment period was initiated at that time. We received no comments during the comment period.
So this is the
So
last
this
thing.
item is for the approval of the resolution to adopt.
Motion to close public hearing and approve the text dot, is that correct?
Approve the resolution
resolution.
adopting the
Second.
targets.
The resolution MPO 2019-01. And seconded, discussion. None heard, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? None heard, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item C, again, receive public testimony and approve resolution number MPO 2019-02, adopting the Texas Department of Transportation's 2019 targets for the 5 federal safety performance measures as listed below. And it shows from 2015 through 2019 is a 5-year average. Ms. Guerra, go ahead.
This is very similar to the previous item. These are the targets in relation to safety. The performance measures and targets are listed there. And this item, again, was initiated for a 20-day public review and comment period at our last meeting. We received no comments during the comment period. The item is seeking the adoption or the approval of this resolution adopting said performance measures and
Okay,
targets.
do we need a
Motion to
public
close.
hearing as well
Yes.
now?
Well, but it's already been open, so we just have to close it, correct? Sorry, ma'am.
The comment period was open, but this is the public hearing.
So you want us to go ahead and open it?
Open the public
Motion to
hearing.
open up the public hearing for the
Second.
resolution number MPO 2019-02.
There's a motion to open as a public hearing, a seconded discussion. None heard, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? None heard, motion carries. It's a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against? For or against this item? For or against? Seeing no movement from the audience, is
So
there
now
a
you
motion?
wish us to close and introduce?
Yes.
And
Motion
approve,
to
I
close
guess.
and
Yeah.
introduce the resolution.
Second.
As stated, seconded, discussion. None heard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? None heard. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item D, discussion with possible action on the River Road project. I believe a staff member was gonna, Mr. Chavez? Yes,
Is there any movement on that?
yeah. I don't think so. Mr. Chavez?
Honorable Mayor and members of the committee, Ramon Chavez, Executive Director of Public Services, for the record. The only update that we have, Honorable Mayor, is that we need to acquire 100% of the right-of-way, and after that, identify a funding source, basically.
Okay, and I believe we've made, at least I've made various attempts with one family in particular, the Muller family, and we've had no luck. I also thought that maybe another landowner adjacent to the Muller family was going to visit with the family. I think there was a possibility that the area in question that we need was for sale, and I think they were trying to work something out to purchase that, and then in turn the purchasers would donate or work something out, I guess, with the group. But I haven't heard from that gentleman as well. So we're still in the first step. So my understanding is that we have all but one that is in agreement to donate. And the main sponsor is Mr. Algilt, but he's not here. So I guess we
So
may
the
have
Mullers
to.
are the only ones that do not want to cooperate
Well, yeah,
at this time?
for whatever reason, yeah.
Mayor, may I?
Yes, sir.
How many miles, Mr. Chavez?
One second, please.
No problem.
Does staff have that information, Melissa?
I don't have an estimate on the mileage.
Who was the landowner that came before us? It's kind of pursuing this. Not gonna get us around this year.
I don't remember. Who was it? Do you remember?
What's that?
Who was it, the landowner that came and tried to push this?
Yeah, he's a.
Medina, no? Yeah.
Medina, yeah, Joe.
Joe
Yeah,
Medina?
yeah, Mr. Joe Medina was, My understanding is that he was also trying to make some inroads with the Muller family as far as maybe buying their portion.
So why don't we just, no action taken right for now until we get more information, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. And then once, say if, really, we want cooperation, the other alternative would be, well, we know what the alternative would be. And then we have to identify a funding source, and so we have so much other work to do. Okay, is there a motion that we table?
I just wanted to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, approximately 4 miles, 21,120 linear feet.
4 miles?
That's what I have for River Road.
Okay, it's a short span.
Oh, great, okay.
Sometime back, we did meet with Border Patrol because we wanted their input,
Okay.
and we were hoping maybe of using some of these federal funds for River Road as well.
It's small then.
Yeah, it's just back
Now
way
I
out,
understand
no?
why you wanted to put the money, so, okay.
And in essence, we were thinking, I guess, from Fletcher Lane all the way to Pico, was it, or not to the Mines Road, I guess. It would end up at the Mines Road area, through the Pico Road, somewhere there. Yeah, anyway,
No action taken.
yeah, no action, yeah, so,
Has anybody done a topography study of that? Because, with all the creeks and arroyos in there, would it?
Mr. Medina needs to
Would
be here
it, would
next
it be
time, maybe.
cost prohibitive? Have you?
No,
looked at the
but I
layout?
know, I've been part of one meeting, and I know at that meeting, they had a consultant which came up with an estimate already for this road.
Right.
I mean, if you got multiple bridges, then forget it,
Yeah, my memory serves me correct, 7, 8 million at that time,
For a 2-lane or what?
yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
no action.
No action,
Okay. Yeah, next is a discussion with possible action on the Chad Bruthinger Road. I would call upon the county engineer.
I can give you a little bit of an
Okay,
update on
yes, ma'am, go
on the
ahead.
city's portion. As I mentioned during last month's meeting, on July 16th, 2018, the city adopted resolution number 2018 R96, and that adopted adopted and authorized the city manager to execute a 380 agreement with for roadway traversing the 5,135 acres located west of I-35 at Unitech Overpass across the Achar Trust property to FM 1472. At this time, I spoke with the project manager this morning, Mr. Nicholas Van Steenberg, and he says he does have the contract and will execute upon the county initiating work on their portion of so that they can coordinate their efforts.
Is that your understanding too?
Good
Mr.
afternoon,
Garcia?
Mr. Chair.
Garcia?
Luis Perez Garcia, County Engineer for the
Welcome.
record. Yeah, we're running on parallel paths. We're both going, it's the same contractor that's going to, or the same consultant that's going to be providing the studies. We're working with TxDOT officials right now. Our legal division is making sure that our interpretation and their interpretation of the record keeping that's required to be able to be eligible for funding is in place. We're dotting i's and crossing t's and moving forward on this project.
So we're beyond that approval that's all we're waiting for.
Yeah,
You got
thanks
the
to
approval
text,
from
thanks to
TxDOT?
TxDOT, they gave us approval, yes.
Okay, so we're set. Okay, wonderful.
And that's all I have, sir.
Okay then,
Yeah.
you'll report more next month as well? Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I just, I had a conversation with the TxDOT people earlier in the year, and I was just very concerned because, all the things that transpired, and we look at when change orders comes to the Commissioner's Court, and, I think we've continually asked the question, has TxDOT approved it? And they say yes. But what I've come to find out is TxDOT basically approves, how do you put, they just approve that it's something that,
That is technically
well,
correct?
technically correct.
General
Not,
procedures.
not
yes.
whether it's needed or not needed. And so this is where I'm having problems because not having, expertise in that thing, and things come to us for approval, you know, and we don't know how, you know, we just say, I thought these were mandatory things that were brought up and it's just kind of ministerial duty, and now I'm finding out that's not the case.
That the roadway is needed is.
No doubt about the roadway.
That we bring you procedural steps that need to be taken, saying that we've got approval from TxDOT to bring forward this procedural. I think the last several go-rounds were with the procurement process and the hiring of the consultant. Everything that we brought forward was previewed by TxDOT before being presented and gotten permission to go forward and seek your approval.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how my colleagues feel there on the thing, but I've become very uncomfortable with the situation now, especially because I think we approved one for like $2.6 million change order on the loop. And those are things like, how do you come up, you know, how do they come up and just say, all right, here's a change order. And like I say, I thought they were saying, yeah, you need this. And they're just saying.
I don't know specifically which one you're referring to. I'm updating you on the Ruthinger portion of the Ruthinger Road.
My concern is the same contractor.
That I understand, and that we've gone
Who's
forward.
the contractor? I'm sorry.
Well, not the contractor, the engineer.
Just a little bit more information.
And now
Certain
it's hired
things
by the county.
on Loop 20, such as, hey, you know what? We've designed Del Mar for this particular width, and we think that maybe we need to widen that so that if in the future we need to widen Del Mar at Loop 20, that there's a sufficient amount of roadway underneath the bridge that we don't have to redo the bridge in addition to widening of the road. Those are the kinds of things that we bring forward. And it's procedural things specifically on Loop 20. That's one of the ones that I might be referring to. I'm not sure which one was the.
Well, I'm just saying, it just came to my attention and I said, well, why are we approving these things or not approving these things? And I say, with us, with no knowledge, you know, the expertise, whether it's needed or not needed.
Well, let me ask you this, would the county engineer serve as your agent to evaluate, you know, that concern and be
What I'm saying,
recommending?
so is it you that's on the line, or is it who's the one that's, when it comes back to us at the county?
I'm the one that brings it forward. Generally, our civil legal division is involved. Generally, you gentlemen are involved.
Again, I don't think you're a highway contractor,
No, by no means.
and I don't think our civil legal is a highway contractor.
And we
So-
know we're not highway
So
contractors.
somebody's telling us we need it. So either we have to have a highway contractor project manager on board, or I'm not approving anything else anymore, because
Do you want to address this?
I'm not gonna have the exposure based on me, because it doesn't fall in your lap, it falls in my lap.
I understand.
Okay, so having
Maybe
said
Mr.
that-
Bratton can elaborate a little bit more on the Loop 20 as far as the,
But do you want to, it's not on the,
not on the agenda, that's,
yeah.
I'm just talking about the procedure.
But I guess the procedure which would apply to this, Chair Ruthinger.
Everything that is done by the consultant is reviewed by the responsible person in charge, that's Mr. Perez Garcia.
Yeah, but he's not a
From
contractor.
there, it is submitted to TxDOT. TxDOT also has oversight. They look at those things as well. If everything is in order, there should be no change orders. But what has happened in the past, I can give you an example, the Colton Road project that the city had. They had all the design work done. Everything was in place. TxDOT reviewed those documents and said, you guys, you're using the wrong specs. Specs have changed. Just an example, okay? So they were going from, I don't remember what year, but there were two different sets of specs, like 2010 specs to 2017 or 2015 specs or whatever. TxDOT said, you need to upgrade to match those specs. So the city had to go back and redo some of the plans to bring it up to that standard.
That's not really my point, hold on, please, if you please. Because, again, you know, I've been looking into this, and the more and more I look into it, the more uncomfortable I have become. Is not necessarily whether it's out of spec or in spec, it's more of, is it needed? And they can say, oh, we want to design this, you know, this ramp that's going to be 90 feet wide instead of 45 feet wide. They're going to say, well, it's technically correct, but do you need it?
Correct, and that's
And-
one of the
and-
things that we look at,
But
we should be
again-
looking at. For example, you've got a roadway that you're wanting to put in, 400-foot right-of-way, and all of a sudden you go from a 2-lane or 3-lane concrete, trying to do a 5-lane and something like that. That's not inside the specs of what was actually asked of the consultant. How it comes in is if the court says, you know what, go back and refigure this or redo it. It can't come from the consultant. The consultant's bound by what was in this, in
I
the
understand, but
scope.
but the way it's just coming up to us, and we were always thinking it was a ministerial approval thing, that's why we would ask, is TxDOT approved? Yeah, they approve. But again, you know, we're talking about going out for design bid or CMAR, and we're saying, okay, that person's gonna be looking over for us.
Right.
So who do we have on these projects that's looking out for us? Mr. Garcia can't do it, and you can't do it, so.
In this particular case, we're not doing any construction. In this particular case, we're
But
doing
again-
environmental.
You're doing environmental, but they can put a change order and say,
That
is it needed or not
Well,
needed?
somebody has to put that change order in. The consultant can't just come up with a change order out of thin air. They shouldn't. I mean, if they do, it's gonna
I
be
mean, how many
highly
change
questioned.
orders have we done in the last,
On that,
at least 10?
on that project?
On
Charles Ruthinger?
with the same people?
I don't know. That one, I don't know. I do know there were change orders. If you're talking about Loop 20, I do know there were change orders. Some of them
Change order
were.
after change order after change order.
Some of those change orders were, with respect to putting in the IT, on the project. Where?
But again,
Bike lanes, those,
who's in there for us to tell them, yeah, we think this is reasonable or not? We don't have a project manager. And that's what I'm talking about. We don't have a project manager that's looking out with
understood,
knowledge.
Commissioner, but project manager or not, it's a commissioner's court decision at the end of the day for us to come and say, hey, we think there's a change order required here because of X, Y, and Z. Usually, we try to work with TxDOT to confirm that it's something that's absolutely needed. I mean, not that it's just somebody's, desire. And then it comes to the court, and the court makes that determination whether they want to do that change order or not.
Would you hold your thoughts, please? Yeah, let me just introduce to you Dr. Marta Martinez. He's a future appointee, but I asked him to serve, for the next few years.
Awesome.
So he'll be just kind of, you're welcome.
What's the college term?
And hopefully by next meeting, we can get him on board, Vanessa. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me,
Officially, yeah. Thank you.
let me ask TxDOT then, if you're willing to go out on the limb and how do I feel comfortable now with this project or any other project saying, when they're bringing a change order, can I ask you, I said, do you think this is relevant? Do you think this is needed? Would you all able to do that?
I think Commissioner Guerra, there's several issues you want to address here, and certainly there's a variety of projects that we can discuss here. We can discuss a design project, we can discuss a construction project.
And keep in mind, it's not on the agenda, so it's got to be very brief. I know you're making a comparison.
Well, I'm just saying, for this particular project, do I need a project manager that's gonna tell me, or do I just go and say, all right, as long as there's no change orders, or if somebody submits a change order, if this engineer submits a change order, can I look to you and say, is this something we should sign?
No, Commissioner, I think if we try to clear it up a little bit, we submitted this MPO federal dollars, $300,000 design build. Per the requirements of TxDOT, there has to be a project manager assigned to that project. That is a given. We are not the engineer on record. We oversee that the requirements are processed. One of the requirements of that money and that utilizing of that money on that design is that there has to be a project manager. There has to be a responsible person in charge, which is what Mr. Nathan Bratton is trying to explain right now. Your question to me is this project needed? The project came forth way before my time. This was something that was come together that we voted on as the MPO committee members came to be here. Now, in order for us to utilize that money, we do have to have a project manager on site to match up with the requirements of that funding.
Okay, but again,
So your answer is no, there's no one that you can hold responsible for the county.
no, he's saying there has to be a project manager.
We have a project manager.
But I'm saying, who is the project manager?
No,
For me, that's not acceptable.
Mr. Perez Garcia is the responsible party, person in charge, and the project manager is Mr. Guillermo Cuellar.
Okay, but I'm saying, we have nobody, the project manager is not a highway contractor, has never constructed any highway roads that I know of. I don't believe anybody
So
within
he's
North
not
County.
qualified, you're saying?
Yeah. So,
Again,
I
Commissioner,
realize this is
with all due
environmental.
respect, in this particular project, we are not doing any construction. We are doing an environmental and schematic design. That's it. And that is also being done in coordination with the city of Laredo, okay? So all of that comes together. I mean, you've got a multitude of people that are gonna be looking, the city's gonna be looking at it, county's gonna be looking at it, and I would, TxDOT's gonna be looking at it.
Yeah, but I mean, TxDOT answer to me last time was, well, we just look at it if it's technically correct. We can't tell you, and you know, if you have the money. Because they say, well, you know, it was a $2.6 million change order.
Well, this is only a $300,000 project.
I understand that.
Commissioner.
But it's the same people, the same thing, and it's just.
Yeah. I mean, at the point that,
I think we've been put on notice, you know, that
I think at the point that the county does get involved, if it does ever get involved in the construction of a project like that, I think then your questions are well taken, and all of those things have to be discussed and fleshed out.
you don't anticipate any change orders then?
No, sir,
Okay,
not on this project.
very well.
Okay,
So is, who they mentioned, Mr. Perez Garcia, and
They've already been approved by TxDOT, sir.
they have been approved for
Yes,
this
sir.
particular
We've
project?
gotten another to proceed from the district to move ahead. We've already talked to the consultant. We've asked for a project initiation meeting. We've also asked for TxDOT's designation of their project manager so that we can start working with them. And the only other issue that was left sort of laying there was the state letter of authorization. Spoken to Mr. Rodriguez. They're querying TxDOT in Austin about that state letter of authorization to make sure that if it's not needed, that, you know, we've got that in writing, or if it is needed, that we get it. But we're poised to go. I mean, it is finally to the point where that
I
one
know it's
thing
been a
gets
while,
answered,
I
it's
understand
gonna
that,
go.
and I hate to delay it anymore.
And, well, that's what we're all trying to avoid, let me tell you. I mean, we're
But
hustling
they
up.
say, you know-
TxDOT's been very helpful with that. They understand our concern, and they've been diligent in responding to us on that particular issue.
let's see, let me ask Ms. Guerra, from the city's standpoint, are we okay? Do we have any impediments or any issues similar to this?
At this point, I'm not aware of any.
Yes, ma'am.
As I said, I just spoke with Mr. Steenberg this morning, and he's waiting for the initiation
So
of
we're
the
waiting
project.
on the county's.
We're just waiting for that one last little answer, and then it'll be, you know,
Could you feel comfortable with that?
the initiation,
Yeah, I mean-
the project initiation meeting, and at that point, I mean, the city will probably be invited, you know, to come in and sit in that meeting so that we can all everybody can get together on the same page and move forward. Because there's some coordination that has to take place, obviously.
Yeah, so we're talking about the environmental and the.
Schematic.
and the schematic, and then the construction is totally different than.
Instruction.
Well, schematics, you can have change orders.
Huh?
On the schematics, you can have change orders. I
Sure you
mean,
can, I mean, but I don't foresee any, I mean, generally.
you know, just tell them no change orders.
Change orders are generally for unforeseen items.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to refresh your memory, Mayor, you all have an AFA already for the construction portion. I think you have an AFA also approved already by TxDOT for the PS&E, Plan Specification and Engineering Design. So this
the
thing,
funding
once
has
it gets
been
done,
secured.
your money's secured.
That's all the funding for
For
construction
those,
has been.
yeah, for
secured.
those two are, and the third one, I think, I don't remember if that one went through or not, but the first two for sure is there. So, you know, just getting through this EA process and getting that clearance, you guys will be in a real good position to start the design work.
But and when it comes to construction, of course, it'll go out for bids, it'll be,
Absolutely, that's.
okay, that's
The
a
feds
totally different.
required, TxDOT requires it, and the city requires it, the county has those same.
Speaking of going out for bids, if I may.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Is there a way that we could come together as one, and that way we could just have one procurement process and one contractor and all that, instead of doing this twice again?
No, hopefully we can, well, I don't know.
Well, they're doing it. No, this is
Well,
private construction.
at the point that the EA is, you get the FONSI and everything is done, the county, you know, is obligations are pretty much over. The PS&E plan specifications and estimates, That is an AFA that the city has done directly with TxDOT.
So when they go out for.
They're gonna be in control of that. They'll have to go out for RFQs, you know, and
Perfect.
hire an engineer on a
Perfect.
competitive, on a,
Yeah,
you know,
I don't want no part of that, so.
on a qualifications-based,
Very much.
basis.
Perfect, thank you.
Call for the question?
What was your question?
I think it was just.
There's no action required on this.
Oh, okay.
Just a reason, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so we don't, the approval has been granted previously?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to reports and presentations, a presentation by Bill Frawley. Is it Frawley? Of the Texas Transportation Institute on Resiliency. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be here today.
No, I know it. That's the problem. I know, because I thought it was just ministerial, that's the problem.
My name is Bill Frawley. I'm with the Texas A&M Transportation Institute, research arm of Texas A&M University System. I'm up in the Arlington office. We have offices in a few places around the state. Some of y'all are familiar with the agency.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. So I'm going to talk about resiliency. I think you have a handout with you with the slides. Just to give you a heads up, there's only 14 slides. Some of them I'm going to go through pretty quickly because they're really reference material to the rules and regulations so that you have it. And then I'd like, if you have a few minutes, to have just a little bit of discussion to get some of y'all's thoughts on some things so y'all can be thinking about things as move forward through this process. Talking about resiliency, which is one of the new requirements out of the latest federal legislation that metropolitan planning organizations need to address in their metropolitan transportation plans and their project selection, and just overall how you're looking at your transportation system. And so, you know, what does resiliency mean? I think we all kind of have the idea, in a real casual term, how do you bounce back from something, right? So, but in the transportation world, here's some key words: ability to anticipate, prepare for, and adapt to changing conditions, and then withstand, respond to, and recover rapidly, and it probably should say as possible, from any of the disruptions. So basically, when something happens and it interrupts the transportation system, whether it's man-made, natural causes, traffic accident, whatever it is, how does the overall system respond to that and recover so you can keep transportation moving throughout the Laredo metropolitan area? Also, I always like to say, if you have any questions while I'm going through this, please feel free to stop me right then and say, hey, I've got a question, or can we talk about that, or can you explain a little bit more? All right, just for reference purposes, here's where the federal rules are located. So I'm not going to read all that to you, but that way you have it, you know what your staff has, and so on, okay? So here's some of the basic steps to incorporate resiliency. One of it is a term called assessing criticality. So basically you get with the stakeholders. Who are the other people, agencies, groups in the Laredo area that have a stake in the transportation system moving efficiently and to keep it moving if something happens? So you want to get all of them involved, okay? And there's some deals with climate data, okay? So not the political overall, is there climate changes or not, or the polar caps melting or whatever, but basically, even with just extreme temperatures, even with drought situations, that can cause things to happen to the pavement structure. As the ground dries out over time, if there's longer periods of that, that can cause some pavement failures or some other types of things. You know, if there's ever wildfire issues because of the longer droughts or the extreme dry or the winds that come along with that. So just anything that happens to change throughout time that can cause disruptions, especially to the structure of the pavements or bridges or flow of traffic in general. And then assessing vulnerability. So that comes down to, you know, what are the transportation assets in the Laredo area that are most vulnerable to some type of interruption? And we'll go through a few examples specifically, but that's just to start getting your mind on some of these things. Not going to go through all of this, but basically you can see there is a process for looking at vulnerability. Some places around the state are actually hiring a consultant to help do a vulnerability assessment. Some of those are especially the ones along the coast where they have hurricanes, more flooding, those types of things. It may or may not be something that needs to happen in Laredo, but this is the process. Again, it's just finding out what are the assets in the transportation system that could be vulnerable to different types of problems, what can be done to address those, prevent disruptions, minimize them, recover rapidly. So again, that's just a process chart for reference purposes. We can talk about it in depth if you want, but y'all may have dinner to go to today too. Okay. So there's some opportunities to incorporate resiliency and the issues into this list of things here. So we start at the top, you know, the vision and goals. There's a vision for transportation in Laredo. There's goals and objectives in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan and so on. So then you look at the long range transportation plan, the MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. How will strategies and projects that are included in there ultimately say, you know what, we're thinking about the resiliency of the transportation system. If something happens, here's strategies, here's some potential projects, here's our roadways, other parts of the transportation system that are most vulnerable to it.
Yeah, if I may ask a question.
Yeah, please.
And maybe it's, the bottom line is money. You know, say we determine that we're not resilient, that we're vulnerable.
Mhm.
You know, ultimately it's, okay, here's a list of things that we need to be watching out for. And that's normally what we do here.
Sure.
So aside from what we do here, is there another component that you can share with us that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, it's, I guess the other component is just taking a look at what specifically are the issues here in Laredo. And then again, it's prioritizing where can you spend the limited amount of funding you have, what's feasible to do. I'll just give you an extreme example from like Beaumont, okay, where they've been hit by hurricanes and flooding over and over. They have Interstate 10 that runs through there. You know, one answer could be raise Interstate 10 so it doesn't get flooded or washed out every time there's a hurricane. But that would cost billions and billions of dollars, and so it wouldn't be financially feasible, wouldn't be environmentally feasible, and so on. So they have to look at other strategies. So yeah, you can look at some things that are the problems, and you can go through a process of elimination, say these wouldn't work, these might.
Yeah, and I would ask the members here, you know, okay,
Well,
we all
I was
think of something like that?
I was just gonna say, what's the difference between this and the feasibility studies we just did, you know? Where we looked at, you know, reducing queuing times and things, so that the one we had a while back. I think, I don't remember how much money we showed that we had to do improvements in different areas to be able to.
Yeah, the Mines Road areas, force efficiencies and that sort of thing. You know, we've done something similar.
Sure.
I think maybe we've covered that.
Probably some hotspot, isolated location type things.
Choke points.
Yes, yeah, and that's a part of it too. Let me flip through a couple of
Sure,
slides
go
here. I'm gonna flip through a couple of things that there's some issues that came up back and see what you're wanting to focus on. So I'm gonna move to some of that, and we can go back if we need to. I'm gonna use this satellite photo for a minute, because this kind of gives an idea. There's a port of entry on here. You've got the interstate, you've got the loop, you've got the supporting network. So again, if you've had some times where you've looked at what are some choke points along, and I saw on the agenda like I-35 at Monroe, there's maybe a study or something going on there. But instead of just always looking at things isolated, what's the overall view? What's the overall picture so that something doesn't get forgotten about? In other words, if you look at the highway leading up to this port of entry, what are a variety of issues that could happen along that way? And this is something for the staff to look at and identify and come up with a menu of issues, potential solutions, and so on that could possibly lead to some more of those specialized studies at certain points
Yeah,
along
and
the
I
way.
think we, for the most part, unless you'll think different, I think we've done that, and I think the only limiting factor is money.
Yeah, that's
We have so
it.
many needs. Yeah,
So-
but Melissa and David, you know, you're well.
We've done, some obviously, work on, we know where the congestion is. And then, the RMA is initiating a study in that area as well. That's gonna help us isolate perhaps some priority areas that need to be focused on and, come up with, some proposed projects, based on, the level of congestion, the proposed cost and, to help the MPO prioritize what can be done, quickly and maybe in the long range
Well, I
to
mean,
improve that.
looking at this slide, what haven't we done that's on this slide?
You wanna go, I guess, back, Bill, one?
Did you want this?
On this slide, I'm just saying,
one
I
that's
think
up now?
we've done all this.
I'm going to suggest one of the things that you might need to do, and when I say you, it's at the staff level that y'all would eventually approve, but it's basically making sure there's a comprehensive look. And because it's a federal requirement, because it's federal funds that pay for the planning process, so every 4 years, y'all may be familiar with, there's a federal certification review that happens. One of the things they'll be looking at this next time is how is the MPO addressing all these federal planning requirements? One of the new ones, which is resiliency. So you want your staff to be able to present there along with the other planning partners, the state DOT, the cities and so on. We have taken a comprehensive look at it. We've developed a map that shows where the most vulnerable roads are for flooding or, backup because if something happens at one of the ports of entry, what happens to the transportation system? How can information be shared through the ITS signs and so on? So
Well,
that's.
let me ask you this.
Yes.
So you need action on this so we can,
No, there's no action required today. This
but
is
you're saying
informative.
that we need a direct, our director here to.
No, let me address that. This was simply just for informational purposes.
No, but he's saying that every 4 years by federal requirement, we need to comply with something like this.
And we are. At a staff level, this is resiliency is one of the new planning factors. And we're in the process of developing our long-range plan, our 25-year plan. And within that process, we're taking a good look at the resiliency of our network. We've had a number of workshops and to discuss the resiliency of our network and brought together our safety folks, the freight
Okay, so you're
movement
very
folks.
much aware of that?
Oh, yes,
and-
yes,
and-
yes,
Yeah,
sir.
there's a question or a comment, our new member.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation so
Sure.
far. I know that this is now a new requirement as far as what we have to do is with, regarding the MPO and then the city at large. My question is, what kind of advantages do we have, or what can the state provide to us? What services can the state provide to us to help us? What monies do you have available to help us get through this? Does it have to be done on a local level, or is there something that the state can do to try to help us as far as being able to get some of these funds to create some of these things as we go through this process?
There's some coordination efforts that are being assisted from the Federal Highway Administration, the Texas Division Office. So there's federal highway planners that are helping to put together information, a list of things for the MPOs to consider. So in other words, they can come up with a menu of things, some of which are on here. And then they can help say, well, here's some strategies, here's what's worked. Our agency helps TxDOT get information out to the MPOs through an interagency agreement that we have. So we can look at what's going on, not only in Texas, but other states as well, and do some kind of peer exchange to help this MPO, Beaumont, Inland Odessa, whatever they are, to make sure they're focusing on the issues that need to be focused on. Because, really, y'all don't need to have much concern about hurricane preparedness, right?
Well, we are an evacuation route, so.
You get to see, so you want to then talk about what happens with traffic coming in for the evacuation, but you don't have to worry as much about the floods from a hurricane, but you may have some low-lying roads and there's flash flooding that doesn't hit those every so often, maybe in the spring and summer or something. But again, so it's just identifying, looking back, say, and one of the things in here is looking back over the last 25 years or so. Where have we had issues on the transportation system? Whether it's, again, from flooding, pavement failure that may have happened because of drought, that type of thing, or if you've had an influx of traffic because of hurricane evacuation, which is a good point to bring up. Maybe there's recurring places where you have crashes frequently, and so those incidents back up traffic on not only that road but other roads or redirect traffic. So is there something that can be done either to help prevent the crashes or to minimize the time that the incident is being managed? So a variety of things.
And you have all that information available, or we have to track that information?
We have some that we'll share with the MPO, as we do with all of them, and then they'll get creative. They'll look at local issues, but there's resources out there, and we help provide the resources. There was a symposium conference back in June or July, I believe, where a variety of researchers, the people that just really, they got together and said, well, here's some of the issues we've looked at and come up with. So they're in the process of helping get that information out to all the different MPOs. So this is kind of just to let you know some of the issues that your staff is going to be facing. And then when they come back at some point and say, hey, we've got to address this resiliency, here's some ideas, or here's why you keep hearing this word. This is a little bit of just getting the information to you directly so that y'all kind of understand.
When is that report due?
The
Resiliency.
25-year plan, December of this year. It should be finished by December of this year.
December, okay, so you'll be,
Oh, yeah, we'll be
You're bringing
bringing it forward.
information
Some of
to-
the things that we identified during our workshops was, problems when the bridge goes down, the computers at the bridge that causes the backups that we see, on Mines Road. And then, dealing with accidents on Mines Road, the resiliency of our network during those two sorts of events, and having, maybe strategies for dealing with those sorts of things. So those are the things that we identified during our workshops, and, other sorts of things that we'll be looking at. But this is something new, something that we're looking at in depth.
okay, do we need to cover, anything else?
One thing I was just gonna point out on this slide, and I've got at the bottom here, coordinate with partner agencies. So each of you represents a different member entity of the MPO, city, county, and so on, state DOT. So there's gonna be some efforts from the MPO probably to bring the staff level people together so that the state DOT, the city, the county, DPS, and so on are all working together and on the same page. So someone's not over here, well, we should do this, or this is the only way we can do something. But again, especially when it comes to incident management or looking at new ways to prevent problems or communicate information to the traveling public, whether it's through the message signs on the highways and so on.
Thank you. And do we have any other questions or comments for the gentleman?
I just had one
Yes, ma'am.
comment, for Councilman, and Councilman, at TxDOT, we've often tapped into our TTI contract, our TxDOT TTI contract, because we have a lot of commonality in our issues. And one example is the Mines Road FM 1472. So we used our TxDOT contract in the past to do a study on Mines Road congestion and, what are the effects of perhaps some alternate connections between Mines Road and I-35. And then in terms of funding, your question on funding, well, the MPO receives planning funds, and then of course, some construction dollars in Category 7. So those are funds that can be tapped into, both for planning type studies and for construction as well. So we work together, and we have in the past. Again, there's a lot of commonality in the issues, so we try to kind of help each other out.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you so much. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for all your suggestions. Moving on to B, staff report to discuss the intersection of I-35 and Monroe and the traffic-related issues at said intersection. I think that's your district for that?
Monroe?
No? No, it's beyond, that's Nelly, I guess.
No,
Or,
no, it would be,
it was part of,
who?
Mr. Hall?
yes, sir.
Robert Eads, Traffic Department, this is a Councilman Allgill sponsored item. He had wanted us to look at this at a staff level and possibly make a quick presentation, but it is driven from Councilman Allgill's request.
Okay, do you want to proceed or wait for him for the next go around?
However you want to defer
No,
this.
proceed, I guess, and see.
Mr. Mayor, this is something I know I've called a couple of times. I use that road daily, especially from 35 West. There is no striping, no nothing there. And it's usually 2 lanes on the eastbound side and 1 lane on the westbound side. But, since there is no striping, the cars tend to queue up and just, all over the place, so it doesn't allow the free flow of traffic. So I've asked for that thing to be striped several times. And
Where's that, Commissioner?
from the Taco Palenque west,
Where? What's that talking about?
huh?
They're by the bank, no, it's not Texas, well, they used to be.
So it'd be this
West, yeah. Puerto Mines Road,
Yes.
I mean Santa Maria.
Santa Maria, the other side.
So, Mayor, members of the committee, just quickly to point out what the issue as reported to us is, as you can see with the lane configurations that we have here, which we have, this is southbound, making an eastbound turn. We have the allowance for 2 left turns coming in, which on the Man Road side only accepts at this point 1 lane. And so we have some traffic that gets caught up there trying to jockey for position have near misses. It's mostly perception. We do have some accident data. But at this point, there's only a couple ways to do this, just because of the, you know, the layout of the land, if you will. One simple but extremely costly way is to widen this roadway, which would be right there by the bank, which means right-of-way acquisition, because we would need about 12 feet of right-of-way. And that would only get us to the entrance of the driveway to that bank. And so there it would narrow back into what would be Man Road going east. So we'd be able to accept the traffic, if the same lane configuration happens, accept the traffic to come in, but we'd queue up again as they're jockeying for position past this point here. The other way to kind of look at this, and we've been working with TxDOT as we always do, and we'll continue to. Reconfiguring, which we understand from TxDOT's point of view, that changing this to only have one left turn, to be able to accept one left, as is the northbound. In other words, use this same sort of alignment going southbound on this side. So you would have, you know, your turn, your through, and then your right and through also. Problem that we've been told, and I'll defer to TxDOT, is that there may be some backups and some queuing if you don't allow for that greater than one turn from here. If you make this only one left turn, that it may back up into the on-ramp. We don't know that to be true or not. We haven't looked at that, but that would be a TxDOT call on their part.
Thank you, Mr. Eads, and you're perfectly correct on that. And thank you for working with us in the past.
Yes, sir.
So if we're looking at it, if you mind setting your pins on that west side there, could you point to the west side?
Right.
There? So what happens there is that we have a left turning movement, and in order for accommodate all turning movements in all four directions, we have to have a dual turning movement in there. If we don't do that, what ends up happening with the one left turn movement, it ends up backing up to the off ramp on 35. Now we got traffic backed up on 35 that's coming at a higher speed or rate, which creates more of a hazard than down here. We looked at the situation and we could do that, but again, you would eliminate time from all the other intersections and you back up the intersection more without that dual turning. So in essence, when you're turning left headed east, if we could get that section of roadway widen over there, you can flow more traffic through it and make that one that turns left on there so they're not jockeying for position.
Right.
Now, why, I mean, I use that intersection every single day. I mean, that's how I get to my house. And so I've never really had any issues there. I mean, I guess if you know, the middle lane you can turn. I usually take the inside lane and maneuver over to the going straight. And there's usually hardly any issues.
Commissioner,
The issues more I get on the Palenque Grill side, where going west up on Man Road westbound, where you have enough for 2 lanes, but there's no striping, so you get cars that
sure,
stack up, one to the left, one to the right, and don't allow for 2 lanes to queue there.
right. And that can be quickly cured. I mean, we can answer that one. The other one too,
But
that,
like I said, I've had that complaint for several years now, and it hasn't been cured.
Right.
So that's why.
so we can move on that part, and because we do also agree that a lot of this is perception. Near miss, it still feels as though it was, for all, intents and purposes, an accident to whoever suffers that. But outside of that, with crash data, you do see some, but not at the rate that would change or entail a significant right-of-way acquisition. We're not here to be able to say that that's not where we would go with this, but there would have to be, at least on the city's part, for obvious reasons, a CIP type project to be able to even start to do this. The other stuff that we can chip away and make sure that the whatever paint's supposed to be on the ground is on the ground, whatever sign should be up. But we wanted to make sure that we addressed the council members' concern. We laid it out, we worked with TxDOT, and really we just don't have many more options just because of the geography of that intersection until we see greater improvement.
Yeah, but you're saying that you could start on the west,
that's right.
Palenque, yeah.
Yes, sir. We can do that.
Yeah, we can do that and then come back and see how things work out.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the direction we can definitely do
Anything
that.
else, from anyone?
I think in his, Mr. East's defense, just geographically, you're absolutely correct. TxDOT has done what he can there. But if you consider Delmar and Shiley, where you have 2 lanes and a turn lane coming in, or 4 lanes, we're having a major interstate, you have 2 lanes coming in and out. I mean, it's a bottleneck in itself, trying to funnel traffic through there. At some point, a CIP would definitely improve that situation there. Thank you,
So,
Mr. East.
so you'll work on a CIP as well?
Oh, most definitely, yes, sir. It'll have a nice price tag on it, but we'll put it in there and shoot for it.
Yeah,
Most
maybe,
definitely.
Councilmember Algett can work through his discretionary
Perhaps,
funds.
Mayor.
You know, my only other comment, I guess, with this, and with any city or county project, you know, these engineers like to draw nice round curves and stuff, these radiuses, and that's not the way people drive. And so, that new turnaround at Shiloh and I mean, what is it,
International.
International and what is it, San Isidro Parkway or whatever, you know, you really have to cut over and exaggerate your turns versus a smoother flow, you know, and same thing, I noticed the other day coming off of, was it Bustamante, turning into the base, you know, the way they, put the white markers down or whatever, the trucks are running over the sidewalk because it's really not the way the traffic flows naturally. And so they gotta make those turns, especially where you have all the truck traffic. You know, you see all the white cones and the whatever the pedals, or wherever you go, they're gone, you know. And I know some of it's just bad drivers,
Until we fix that.
but we had a project just designed at the county and there's no way you can make a turn with there. You know, so.
Okay, do we
The
have
design
anything
on
else?
paper and the way people drive is not the same.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. Do we have anything else on this item? I guess, we need action, I guess. Do you need action on that, or was the city? Yeah, okay.
May I ask a quick question?
Sure, yes, sir.
Have you done a traffic study to see if it really would back up and how quickly it would back up? I mean, because eyeballing it, I can see that, yeah, it looks like it's gonna back up pretty quick. But can you decrease the amount of time that you have at the light, if you will, to make it shorter?
No,
Can,
Mr. Martinez, if you don't mind, Danny McGee's our director of traffic engineer. He's had full experience on this and studied it and.
oh, so this has been studied, that's what I'm asking, if it has been
Right.
studied.
Yeah.
Yes, and that'll be at the TxDOT side, being at their TxDOT right-of-ways. And so TxDOT would definitely be able to answer the question. And I think from what it sounds like, they've seen.
I think it's, when you get the unsuspecting traveler, it gets caught in the turn-only lane.
Right.
Is where you have an incident. But if, you know, the people who live there all know what it is, you know, so you don't have that person that gets to the light and all of a sudden trying to cut back to the right. And then backing traffic up.
I didn't get the question.
The question was regarding the feasibility of actually making it just a one turn as it is on the opposite side. Would that back up traffic? Have we done a study on that? Would it back it up all the way to I-35 exit ramp? In addition, if we were to decrease the amount of time of the light to allow more green, if you will, would we be able to dissipate some of that traffic and actually do both, if you will?
Well, I guess to answer your question in a little bit long way is that we look at all our signals every couple of years to see if the counts have gone up and down. It's been pretty stable over the last few years. But this intersection, like Calton, like Saunders, they're way over capacity. So there's no way to get all the cars through there in a reasonable amount of time. And in this one in particular, if you remember, we have that northbound frontage road. That backs up to the mall, to that ramp. So I can't take time away from any of the approaches to give it to this one because I'm gonna have to do that to handle all the volume of cars. In other words, we turn two lanes of traffic because otherwise we wouldn't be able to turn those cars, you know, maybe 8 cars per cycle. So right now we're able to turn maybe twice as many because of the 2 lanes. This is one of the situations where it's been working like that for years. It's not the best situation, but the best scenario in this one is just not to do anything with it. The complaint has been that when the 2 left turns going southbound go east, that one car cuts another one off. In this case, we have a turnaround before you get to the intersection, so anybody that's going to make that U-turn is going to make it prior to that. Once they're in that dual left, nobody's going to make another left. Even though the signs say you must turn left, they're competing for that one lane.
That's what we recommended. We looked at this over 5 years ago, and we just need another lane. I can't take time away from any of the approaches. They're very over capacity. So to answer your question, if I do take time, eliminate a lane, I'm not gonna be able to take time to give it more time to get all those cars turning left.
They won't equal out, is what you're saying?
No, there's no way.
Eight cars per cycle, 2 lanes, you get 16 cars per cycle. If you were to, if you were to leave it an extra 25 to 30 seconds, how many cars would you be able to do?
It's hard to say, because it just depends on if it's trucks, it's cars, et cetera, et cetera.
You're looking at the
There's been a few times during the year where I'm at the point that just with traffic the way it is right now, it's making traffic back up onto that ramp, onto the freeway. That is the #1 priority for me. If I start seeing that, I'm gonna have to take time away from some of the other movements. And we might have to eliminate lefts, we might have to do this or that, because I cannot have cars backing up onto the freeway when they're coming out at 70 miles an hour.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, good questions, by the way. Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Robert, Trees. Moving on to C, status report by TxDOT on the outer loop alignment study.
Mayor, it's gonna be Roberto Rodriguez from TxDOT.
Welcome, Mr. Rodriguez.
Roberto Rodriguez with the Texas Department of Transportation. MPO members, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna touch up on the outer loop first. Let's look at the Jacobs being our consultant. We have a work authorization with them, and they are collecting project data to update our schematic. It's pretty much, it's gonna take a few months like that. We're gonna be collecting data for the outer loop. And I also have the next item, which is the status on Texas projects.
The what?
Ongoing projects, item D.
Next 2 items, the outer loop, and like I said, the outer loop, we're moving forward, the consultant is collecting.
Okay, so outer loop, basically, it's ongoing.
It's gonna be a few months, before we actually see some outcome from the consultant.
So we're now on D, is that it?
Yes.
You wanna move on? Yeah, so,
The next
yeah.
item.
Oh, excuse me real quick, hold on. See, you're saying what, I'm sorry, for the outer loop?
We have the consultant Jacobs, we have a work authorization with them, and what they've been doing on the past couple of months, they've been collecting information. All this information from the past schematics we have. They are verifying if the existing schematic will still work, or what kind of new challenges we have, or constraints that we might have to tweak it.
Are you all looking at this as a whole, or are y'all gonna do a little bit of a patching?
Right now, we're looking at the whole schematic.
Because generally, it seems like every time we look at something as a whole, it doesn't work out that way. So, do we have a plan B as far as maybe doing some kind of one road at a time?
Correct.
Like, let's say from 59 to 359?
Correct. For the schematic, we should look at the ultimate roadway. It's gonna be a kind of a freeway type all the way through. And then we'll start cutting up in pieces. Once we get to Resiliency, to actually develop plans, then we have to work it into pieces, and we might develop the 2-lane segments. And then
This is not going to the landowners and asking them anything, right? This is just your
No,
schematics.
we will. That's our
will?
next phase.
Right, and that's actually, it's a re-verification, Judge. We actually visited with the landowners back in 2006 or 7 on the existing alignment that we have. We already have a proposed alignment, but so many years have passed that we have to go back with this now new consultant and determine, has there been an oil or gas well that's been erected in the last, 11 years? Have there been buildings, homes that have been built since then? And so this consultant's just gonna re-verify the alignment is still valid, and then move on to the schematic phase.
Is there any way we could get I know it's probably gonna be void, or it might not even come true anymore as far as the 2006, as far as your schematics, but can you send us that? Just curious on
Yeah.
where
Yes,
the
sir.
alignment is.
Of course, we have a draft alignment, and Roberto can send that.
Can you send that, Roberto, por favor?
Yes, sir.
Please,
And that
I'm just curious.
That alignment, Judge, just to refresh everybody's memory, we had 2 companies on board back then, one called Tedsi, that was the engineer that was developing the alignment, but we also hired another company out of Australia called Quanta, And their job was to come up, look at all the different criteria that we look at in developing alignments, you know, the geography, the design requirements, the environmental issues, and come up with basically all the viable alignments. And wherever that band was of tens of thousands of alignments, wherever the band was the thickest, obviously that was where the alignment was best allowed with all the constraints.
Will this be following the railroad, alongside, paralleling the railroad?
Very similar. At the same time, Kansas City Southern hired a company called Trans Systems to do very similar to what we were doing, come up with alignment. In our case, a roadway, in their case, a rail.
Correct.
At the end of those two studies we got together, our alignments were very similar, so it was very good news.
Okay, good.
So it's a multimodal corridor, if you will.
Well, if we could just get that, I'd just like to see it, please.
Yeah, for the members, yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Now, on the next item, I'm gonna talk about the Webb County, City of Laredo project status, what we have right now in Webb County and City of Laredo. I'm just waiting to see if they can get that PowerPoint presentation on the screen.
Is IT working on?
Yeah, I guess that,
Yeah.
there you go. There you go. And the first one, we're gonna talk about the projects that are under construction. I'm gonna let Mr. Carlos Rodriguez, do the quick overview.
Rodriguez,
Good afternoon, Carlos Rodriguez for the record, area engineer.
welcome.
Yes, happy New Year.
Thank you.
The first thing that on the screen, and y'all have it in front of you, is basically the Loop 20 over the Kansas City Railroad, otherwise known as the Oscar Renda project. That one itself is right now, it's 87% complete. Just recently, we've had the southbound and northbound main lanes open, so traffic should be flowing a lot simpler. We're still in the phases of converting what used to be an entrance ramp, converting it back to an exit ramp in front of our office, and we still have to do some work on the southbound frontage road, and of course, completion of the pedestrian walkway.
Can I ask, there's several dips and stuff in there, will those be repaired?
Yes.
Especially that there was some drainage and stuff in there, so.
Yeah, they're having to go back and remedy that. And there's also, could be a little bit of a issue because their subcontractor, which is the one, Angel Brothers, which is doing the hot mix. But we're working with them and moving forward with this project. Right now, we're anticipating early summer of 2019 for completion on this project. Now, the next project we want to talk about is the US 59 over IH-35. This is basically it's known as the SCR project. If you go down 35 or go down Loop 20 from McPherson to the west, you'll see that we have partially started with the concrete pavement. You see all the columns and bands and caps basically erected already. You see that beams are being placed. Actually today, as we speak, we should be finishing placing beams over the railroad.
Excuse me, are those the beams that were on the side of the
Yes,
highway?
but this is Loop 20 or 69 over 35,
Yes, sir.
right? Not 59.
Right.
They call it 59, but it's really I-69 in a way. Well,
If they can
technically you're right, yeah.
they'll be converted to 59 because of the way our policy is.
Right, the
You have to go
designation.
Rodeo and rodeo, it's
20.
not the same.
It's never been called 59 before, it's never been heard
It has to go
referred to
from
59.
69,
It has to go from what it used to
Either
be,
Loop
Loop
20.
20, to 59, 59 to I-69. So sometimes there might be some confusion, but it's still the same roadway.
Okay.
And the bottom line, the project, as County Judge
Yeah, they seem to be
saying, that they're moving forward
moving
fast.
good on that one.
Yes. On that one, we're looking for a winter 2019 completion,
Winter, what being November, December?
This year?
No.
December at the latest.
Wow.
Yeah, December this year.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Next thing, those are two major ongoing projects. Now, I do say that I want to thank the public for working with us because sometimes we have closures and we have an issue where we have closures. We have the public that's working with us, and they're trying to get their cargo and everything to World Trade Center. We got the railroad, working with them. And the reason I was looking at my clock a little while ago is because,
When are they gonna put the beams over the main lanes?
or the main lanes,
Do you have to close the main lanes when they
or
put?
the main lanes, they're up. It's the furnishings that I lack.
The ones on the over 35, they were up this morning.
They were up this morning?
Yes, sir.
Because they weren't up,
Yeah.
yes, 2
Yeah,
days
that's
ago.
exactly what I looked at this morning. It was kind of weird.
They're like, oh,
Yeah.
They're up, and so looking at my watch, because we have a small window right now for replacing beams, and then I have to stop production because the railroads, the train's passing. And I think that's at 3 o'clock or something like that. Then I open up the construction
They're
again.
all piled up there.
But we're moving forward.
Last night, yeah.
Where are we, 359 in Duval?
Oh, the next one, yes, it's 359 from the city limits of Laredo, which is basically 8.8 miles east of Loop 20. From there, we're gonna start Millen Inlay, and we're going all the way up to the county line in Duval. We have some spot-based repairs to take care of also. The project itself is destined, well, we're looking at the summer of 2020 for completion.
But that's gonna be what, you're gonna just resurface or just spot?
It's a spot-based repair and resurface. And the resurface is not gonna be, it's mill and inlay. So it's a little bit more time-consuming than just overlay.
Are
But
there any plans to widen that road?
eventually there will be.
Huh?
I'll talk about that project.
Well, that's coming up.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Then the next one I wanna talk about is in US 83 North, from IS 35 north out. It's from 83 to the Demet County line. And that one, basically, we have not had a pre-construction yet. It's been awarded to Anderson, Colombia, but I'm waiting to set up the pre-con. And then from there, we will start work. We're looking at a, 41 month?
So, like here, would you all have any coordination with the Dimmitt, tech stop to, you know, to do that last?
It's still our area.
Huh?
It's our area.
Oh,
It's a
but
whole
how,
district.
Yeah, they are doing
so you're doing it to 3.4 miles south of 44, how come it's not going all the way to 44?
That's just the project.
A lot of these are designed by control sections.
Huh?
Right.
A lot of these are controlled by controlled job sections.
Mhm.
So we know what's in the payment, so we keep up with the engineering status. And then we have current project going from 3.4 miles south of 35, which we'll discuss a little bit later.
So 3.4 miles is a little bit past that checkpoint, is that correct? So y'all are basically hitting the checkpoint, y'all are just gonna kind of
It's 3.4 miles south of the checkpoint.
right, south of the checkpoint.
South of 44.
No,
Or south of 44, that's what I'm saying.
So we're gonna
So that
put you
changes
on-
it up, so it almost hits you, yes, it'll almost hit a little bit past the checkpoint then.
That's correct.
Okay.
What's the total construction cost for those ongoing projects right now?
The bottom one, the US 83 was $48 million.
Is that all?
The US 83,
Oh, there's two projects in that one.
Peanuts.
the 359, I don't remember the estimate.
No. The two phases.
Where are you gonna get
of
your
83.
base?
Yeah, total of about 40.
Mr. Algilt, let the record, excuse me, let the record reflect that Mr. George Algilt is present.
Basically, for the construction projects is what I have. I'm gonna give it back to Roberto. He'll talk about the more projects that are funded in the future. Are there any more questions in construction?
No, sir, we're good. Not unless the colleagues, nobody? Thank you,
very
sir.
much. Yes, now what you have in front of you, I pass out a couple of maps. You know, we've got so many projects within Webb County and City of Laredo that we pretty much have to place them in two maps. And what these maps have us, these are our projects for fiscal year 2019 to 2022. And you can see the different colors are the control sections that we talk, control section jobs. And there on the bottom, you have the table when it's give you the control section, the highway, the limits, letting date, description, and the estimate of each of these projects. Now, what I'll be covering right now is our major mobility projects that are major projects that we have right now going on in Laredo and Webb County. One of them, as we know, is the future I-69, the US 59 overpasses, interchanges. You know, we have the Chilom, Del Mar, University, Jackman, and Airport. Total of all these overpasses is about $97 million, you know. These projects are funded, and we're moving forward to, for letting on those days. That's shown on the presentation.
Give me one second.
So we haven't stolen any money for the frontage roads, right?
Yes, right now.
Borrowed. Thank you.
Right. Now, the project we have right now that is funded is I-69. That's the widening of I-69 to 6 lanes, from 4 to 6, from the World Trade GSA facilities to approximately I-35 where the construction, the new construction is going on. And also, we're doing some improvements on FM 1472 at that intersection. This is a project for $18.34 million, and it's scheduled to let in August 2020.
Going back to, I'm sorry, the overpasses, so the earliest will be 2021, which will be October of next year?
August 2021, there'll be a.
August 2021, letting.
August 2021, Letty.
Correct.
Letting. So start construction about 3 months later.
I thought it was supposed to be.
2020.
How did we get so pushed back?
September, October, November.
These,
They were supposed to let this year,
well,
and then last year.
there was this is our timeline.
So where are they gonna start? So you're saying we're gonna start in
August 20.
December?
No, yeah.
No, these are lettings.
Yeah, but the construction will start till December?
Correct, takes about 3
Correct.
months for the
They
contract.
actually work during December?
Oh, of course, they'll work all year long.
I'll remind you of 2021.
Unless there's like extremely bad weather days.
Okay, I was just,
Then,
I mean,
you know,
just December's just an
barring that,
awkward
they work.
time to start something, you know, that's all.
Which one has all the acquisition issues? Is it Jackman or Airport?
Airport.
Well, you have the, Airport is the one with the commissary and
The food center
yeah,
and the armory.
and Armory.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So we got the I-69, which is the one to 6 lanes from World Trade Bridge to 35. And also there's some improvements on Mines Road on 1472.
Like what?
Right now, what the consultant is looking at is between I-69 and Killam. You know, they're trying to see we can fit an extra lane. We have the columns from the direct connectors. We're trying to see we can shift the traffic a little bit to place an extra lane that will help us a turning lane from the vehicles traveling south on I-69. If you're going south on I-69 and you exit the ramp and you try to make a right on Mines Road,
Going north
pretty much have to wait for the traffic, you know, to have a space so you can make your right turn lane. So what they're trying to do is try and build an extra lane right there so the vehicles can continuously move and all the way to Killam, add an extra lane from I-69 to Killam Boulevard. So they have space to maneuver and facilitate the flow right there. Also on the west side, on the east side, the other side of I-69, they're also trying to add another lane just for that deceleration lane. Going into I-69, you're traveling north on Mines Road and you try to make, you want to make a right on I-69, they're also adding a turning lane right there. So they're trying to do some improvements with, facilitate the turning movements and reduce the queue.
And that's this $18.34
$1 million
million price tag?
Is doing the third lane on the main lanes on I-69 and adding those improvements to 1472.
With letting set in August
August
2020.
2020.
Now, doesn't that go kind of contrary to what some of the discussions that we've had before, where you're saying, why are we queuing everybody onto Mines Road? I thought they were gonna take them to 35 and loop them back around.
This project here is gonna incorporate from the bridge all the way to 35, where we keep talking about going to 3 lanes in each direction. We're gonna wind out to 6 lanes. While we're there right now, we might as well improve the 1472 movement so we can catch it with this project.
Right, because when we started working backwards from Killam Industrial and Mines Road, we ran all those intersections all the way to the World Trade Bridge, and so at the confluence or intersection of I-69 and Loop 20, all of these movements were identified as problematic. Some of them were identified as low-hanging fruit because TxDOT already owns the right-of-way, and it would just be a matter of extending
or adding an additional lane so these right-hand movements can take place.
Correct. Commissioner, we're just tagging on these turn lane movements that we discovered.
I know, but I thought there was some conversation saying the problem was not so much 69, but 1472. 'Cause you can put all the traffic you want on 1472s. What happens to it once it gets there?
It's what we can do within the existing right of way. Obviously, there's still improvements that are needed. We need to add a capacity on 1472, but there's not a lot of room in terms of existing right of way that can be done throughout the whole corridor. But these types of intersection type improvements can be done within our existing right of way now.
We're eliminating a single turn scenario like we had on Monroe. We're eliminating a single turn and making it two lane scenario so we get more traffic through there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a sub-chapter of Chapter 2 of the TTI study on Mines Road.
Well, and
Councilman.
also as
Short-term
maybe updated by
okay.
the RMA,
Short-term.
aren't you all doing a study on that area as well? Okay.
Correct, and
Yeah.
also, we have to remember, we have the city has a project on the World Trade Bridge for the fast lane, so that's why this is also in connection with that.
Yeah,
one.
but keep in mind, the infra grant was, we didn't get that, so this is pending financing,
No,
right?
this is Rider 11B dollars.
Sure.
That's funding this project. So it's funded, and it's allocated, ready for letting August 2020.
So we don't have to apply for the other grant then?
Yes, sir, we can. And
No,
if
no, I mean,
the
if we don't
infra
need it.
grant- Yes.
Oh, well.
Well, I think, the RMA is gonna, discuss possibilities for infra grant later.
Oh, so the
This
third lane
project-
would be included here and the funding is
The third
available?
lane is included in this project.
And it's funded now?
Yes, sir, for August 2020. If we can get it ready before that, we'll let it before that, but right now, August 2020.
Yeah. Okay, so we don't have to worry about, yeah,
So the
because.
build grant, you could just
Thank you.
say,
No,
we
no,
didn't
thank
get
you.
the
Digo,
build grant, but
money
we
comes
still
in
funded the
that
project.
sky here, so, wonderful, thank you.
It's a great way to start off.
You all
the
have
year.
those magical pockets somewhere.
Please keep it up. Don't stop here. Keep going.
All right.
Okay.
Our next projects that we have right now that are also funded and will be led into construction is the bridge replacement and the widening to 6 lanes on 35 right there by north of Chilo. When we currently had the underpass on the UP railroad, now we're going over. In addition, together with that same project, we created just one single project, is the direct connector number 5. This is a direct connector going west on US
Okay, let me
59.
interrupt you because it's very important. This other project about the 18.34 million, is that gonna cover that choke point as we exit World Trade Bridge? The overpass? And if not, we need to cover that. I mean, that's a huge problem that we have, as they exit into
Oh,
that
correct. And another-
overpass.
No, this
No,
is just
it's
gonna
not.
be mainly for the main lanes.
But can we include more?
Well,
Can't you get some
that
more
choke point, Mayor,
from that magical
yeah,
pocket that you
you're
have
talking
somewhere?
about that 90-degree exit out of the,
See, that's
last
been the
exit
main
bridge.
complaint for
Right,
years.
and your consultant, SEA, is coming up with, some plan sheets to remedy that situation. And then we'll get together and look at that. But right now, your consultant is looking at design solutions to straighten that out.
This will help with the extra lane they're trying to build for the empty trucks, remember? The one that's just gonna go straight.
Yeah, but that overpass is very much part of that 59, I-69 deal, so.
And I mean, the traffic engineers in the audience, I mean, please chime in, but, my lay person understanding is that, given the current, I guess, flow of traffic from the World Trade Bridge onto the I-69 corridor, because it is neck down and it trickles out, we are frankly saved by in many ways, and such that traffic, to use the words of Mr. McGee, is metered, as opposed to just opening up a floodgate. I get it, yes, at some point we do, but once we have all.
Tell the industry that.
Yeah, well,
They want that.
once we have all the downstream facilities
yeah.
engineered and dialed in and built, then, okay, go ahead and open the floodgate, because we've got the downstream capacity to handle it. But what do I know?
Okay.
It works better that way.
Yeah,
There's less traffic as you're trying to build out later.
right, yep.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Moving forward on the I-35, like I mentioned, we have the bridge replacement north of Chilo, that's $54 million project. Then we had the direct connector, which we call the direct connector number 5. Is the one if you're traveling west on US 59 to go south on 35. That's a $30 million project. In addition, with those two projects, we have a third project that will be also letting with this one, which is a widening of 35, the inner section with US 59. Right now, you're driving 35, and you get to, right before you get to US 59, it narrows down to 2 lanes, go over US 59, and then it opens back up to 3 lanes. So we're gonna be closing that gap right in the middle. So it's a short
I'm sorry,
portion.
could you say that again?
It's right at US 59 or was Loop 20 and 35. You're driving 35 north. As soon as you pass this railroad bridge,
Yeah, goes to 2.
you are in 2 lanes. And just over that interchange on over Loop 20, you're still in 2 lanes, right? You're going traveling 2 lanes. And then after you pass the direct connectors, it opens up to 3 lanes. So we're gonna be closing the little gap from the direct connector south.
Wasn't
to
that
where
one of the
project is
chairman's
gonna end.
pet projects that he wanted to do a flyover there? Are they gonna straighten that section out?
We're gonna add an additional lane. in each-
Under the railroad or over?
It's in
Over the
between.
railroad and over
Yeah.
Loop 20 on US 59.
But, we have the Shiloh project that's part, that's within that area that you're talking about.
I think that's what he's talking about.
Right.
That's the
We're
one
talking
that
about
the
Shiloh
commissioner wanted, that
project.
he wants to straighten that leg out,
Yes, sir.
straight over.
Yes, sir.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
so instead of going underneath like the original plans were, we're gonna go.
Correct, and with this, what we're gonna have 6 lanes all the way to, up to Uniroyal. All the gaps we have in the middle,
And
the
that
Shiloh
bridge
and everything.
replacement, is that the one over 35 or which one?
The bridge replacement, the first one is the underpass that we have under the railroad tracks. When you pee just north of Shiloh interchange, then you go to 2
Yeah.
lanes, you go under,
Yeah.
well, now we're gonna go over.
Yeah,
over
but I'm saying,
the
it says bridge replacement widening 6 lanes, Uniroyal interchange, 65 minutes.
That's the bridge that's over.
The one
That's a
that,
widening of the existing structure.
the one that city built? Was that the economic development bridge? The one that goes into Uniroyal? The carrier lane or whatever it is?
I'm not.
It's the only bridge there.
No, you're talking the bridge that is by itself, the unnamed,
The bridge to nowhere?
This
I
is the
don't
one
think
at
he's
Uniroyal,
talking
where the
about that one.
pilot and the Flying J?
Yeah, the bridge that's before it, in that carrier
No,
lane?
no, this is the one at Uniroyal, this bridge here. The one he's talking about, the bridge replacement, this is the one at Uniroyal. We're gonna widen it out, we're gonna fly over the railroad tracks. We're gonna alleviate that situation down
Yeah,
there.
it's the one carrier lane, yeah.
For the pilot.
So the one that's damaged, it's been hit on the side or something,
so now,
on the north side?
correct, the one we're gonna be replacing is the one just north of it, the Uniroyal overpass. 35, that's a September 2021 at $65 million. And then the other project we have is a bridge replacement also on a winding of the mile marker 18, just north of the travel center, when the 35 also goes under the railroad.
Yes.
And we're gonna go over and we're gonna be winding to 6 lane.
So now you can, at that point, you'll have regular, height, because that's your choke point, right? You're making everybody go around.
Correct, and what we're trying to do with all this project is get to mile marker 19 with 6
Yeah.
lanes.
Say that again?
Get to mile marker 19 with 6 lanes,
Okay.
3 lanes in each direction for that project. I mean, all those projects in 35 is about $230 million.
And these are all funded.
This is all funded, these are projects.
Thank you.
Now, I'm gonna talk about projects that are not funded, that we're under development. We're moving forward, we wanna have the PSNEs, the plans ready, so where money becomes available, we'll be prepared. And some of those are the 4 remaining direct connectors on I-35 and US 59 or Loop 20. Was to have 4 more direct connectors to be built, that's about $90 million. That we're still doing PSNEs, wanna have them ready if money
Well,
becomes
you don't
available.
have the char route that you're directing.
Then, and then we have I-35 at Carriers, the one you had mentioned, Carriers Drive, and the other overpass, it does not have a name. What we're trying to do on those bridges is make them wider and add U-turns, so that can help out.
The
with
one
traffic.
that's, just north of Loop 20,
Mhm.
I guess it's the unnamed one.
It's
It
unnamed.
kind of doesn't line up with Kiln, doesn't line up with anything. Can that be extended to the east? It doesn't look like it has enough height to clear the railroad.
Currently, they're looking at it under this project. It's gonna be, looked at to see if we can extend it to the east side. We're also looking at possibly, the issue we have with it is if you come off of 35 and you're traveling and you're coming off the ramp to get on the frontage road and you're trying to get on there, there's not enough space between the intersection of Loop 20 and 59. to that bridge. There actually not enough space to do an off-ramp and on-ramp, so we're looking right now at a braided intersection where you come off and on at the same time. We're still on the design aspect of it, we're still evaluating how far we're gonna go east side, and believe it or not, we're still evaluating if that bridge is gonna be viable to us or not, or we have to move the bridge. So we're still in the design phase of that right now.
Alternative phase, right?
But the main goal that we do have is to go from west to east, east to west at the intersection.
How did that bridge get built? So I know it's before your time, but it's just like,
Yeah, that was quite a while
like out
back.
the middle.
There's one man in the room that knows the answer to that question.
And he's not talking.
Very quiet back there.
Okay, so those two projects, the one is about $45 million. The next project we're also working on, it's an I-35 from mile marker 20 to mile marker 30. That's about a mile north of the Border Patrol checkpoint. And we're also widening to 6 lanes and replace some of those interchangeable bridges. You know, we need to replace them to meet the current standards. It's about a $70 million project that we're working on. We have
So in essence, the 3 lanes will be from the city of Laredo limits all the way up to.
all the way to mile marker 30. That's our
30.
goal. Yeah.
But these are not funded currently. The project that Roberto's explaining right now is not funded for construction.
But they are funded through 18, is it, or?
Yes.
Yes,
18.
only through 18, not
Right.
beyond.
Correct.
But we're working on the design aspects.
Sure. All this project we're working on the design. The other design that we're working on is, of course, I-69 W. You know, the future I-69. We're building the designing the frontage road on the main lanes of I-69. Right now, we have funding for the overpasses. We're still developing the entire design. That's another $170
Okay, let me
million.
ask you this, along with widening, isn't the Cotula district or free or whatever you all call it, aren't they working south also in
That's-
widening?
Actually, Catula's in our district as well. We oversee the Catula, LaSalle County right now.
Okay, are we all
The
doing
only
projects
district-
that would eventually connect south?
Yes, sir.
It's in the long range plan.
There's a long study mobility plan that's in effect that goes from the Red River to the Rio Grande. There is a long, I guess. term
I-35
plan for us,
Long range.
3 lanes all the way?
all the way through, correct.
Thank you.
Now, I didn't see the, outer loop and,
They were late.
Well, it wasn't, we didn't get a drawing though. the other day.
Yeah, they're still working on the line.
but is this,
To reaffirm or?
also under development
Yeah,
as well?
that's actually on my next
Okay.
slide.
Okay.
These are some of the projects that, like I said, they're not funded, but we're under development. On the development, we're working for, waiting on funding. you know,
And
once-
these aren't listed in order of priority, correct?
No.
Okay.
And we have them at the UTP, whatever.
The
not
funded
funded.
ones, Mayor, the ones that are funded within the next 10 years
Yeah,
are
but
in the
this is with
UTP.
it. Okay.
Right, the UTP is a funded 10-year plan. These are beyond the UTP 10 years of finance.
But eventually they'll get there, right?
As we attain
some, yeah.
additional, remember that we have to have, whenever you add capacity, we have to have a certain type of money that is for that, for added capacity. So once we get, quote, mobility money, then these projects can advance to construction.
Thank you.
And then other projects that we also working on but are not funded is a 359 widening. If we have a partially, it's undivided and divided. The undivided portion is 4 lanes with a center turning lane. And then from there it goes into a divided 4-lane highway. This is about 4 miles east of Loop 20, where the currently is from 5 lanes to 2 lanes. From there, we want to extend that another 5 miles towards Hebronville. You know, and this is something we have already under schematic, that we're looking at.
That's the one you were asking about, Commissioner Gale.
Another project we're also looking at right now and developing is the US 83, this widening to 4 lanes from 35 to what used to be Camino Colombia, the State Highway 255, doing it a 4-lane divided highway. And also we're looking at
Divided highway?
yes, divided highway, doing a 4-lane divided.
So what do you, with frontage roads or no frontage roads?
It's just the frontage, the 4 lanes, similar to what we have in US 83 South when you're going to
Okay.
Rio Bravo.
With a turning lane or no turning lane?
You will have some turning lanes, some turnarounds.
Because you got, the truck industry is
Right.
exploding there and
That's the reason behind the divided, because of the trucking industry. We'd rather go in there now and acquire the right of way,
yeah.
where in the future we can go ahead and do a divided highway based on what's going on out there right now.
So we don't have another FM 1472.
Because
Go ahead, please.
problem is you don't have really easy access, so if you don't have the turning, I don't know what you're gonna do there.
And the next project is FM 3338, that's Las Tiendas Road. That's also winding to 5 lanes. Right now it's a 2-lane with shoulders. That's from Mines Road to State Highway 255.
Can we do it to accommodate heavier loads?
Yes, right now we have a rehabilitation project to accommodate heavier roads. And then we have this project coming in the future to widen to 5 lanes.
Okay, so,
Or 2 lanes in each direction and a turning lane in the middle.
so we can handle big trucks towards
Yes.
cargoes? Yeah, okay.
But from my understanding, that you're not supposed to have any cargo on that highway, right?
It's load posted.
Huh?
Currently, it's load
Yeah,
posted.
it's like 30,000 pounds or something?
And so
54,000.
it can, I mean, if an overloaded, oversized vehicle traverses that, they're subject to getting ticketed.
Ticketed?
But that's gonna change with this
Yes.
project, yeah.
Not this one, there's one prior to this project, this is in the future where we're gonna widen out because of the development that's gonna happen.
And we'll be able to handle.
You can show that other project, that's an upcoming project that's fairly soon.
It's actually on this list.
But the one that's funded already.
It's gonna take care of that issue.
Right, and that's gonna, yeah, up to 80,000
Yes, and that's the one that's on this list, right?
per truck, yeah.
Correct. And
If
then,
you ever get a charge, then you won't really need 3338.
Nobody will be involved.
So, I mean,
Well,
in the short term.
Well, if we get the outer loop done, as well, in addition to, then a lot of the.
you're talking 15 years. from now.
Mine, well, we're talking 15 years if we continue to just let it linger here in the ether, but if we, move it up by order of priority, then it gets done sooner rather than later. And if you wanna talk about like a real meaningful, economic, development stimulus, you'll be bringing on all sorts of acreage onto the tax rolls, in due course, sooner rather than later.
I agree.
And so, and a Bridge 4.5 will never take flight without an outer loop. And an outer loop will never mean anything without a Bridge 4.5. And so, I don't know at what point in time, we want to, program it, put it onto the tip or whatever the magic, TxDOT acronym is to make that a priority, but we're gonna need to, I would assume that we would do it sooner rather than later.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir,
where
go ahead.
would that outer loop come in?
It's roughly 6 miles to the east of the existing Loop 20 or 59, we'll just say Loop 20 for today. And it's roughly 6 miles to the east. So starting, south of Rio Bravo, because right now we propose to connect the outer loop.
In this section, in the section that we're talking about,
I
in
haven't
the
shown it to you.
1472 area.
1472, it would connect north of 1472 to the Columbia Road.
255.
Now, there
255.
most likely would be an interim connection to Loop 20, but that is for our consultant to determine. Years ago, before the area around Shiloh was developed, we anticipated for the outer loop to have an interconnection to Loop 20 at around Shiloh. Of course, we all know that area is highly developed now. So our consultant will look at some other alternatives for an interconnection. But from north to south, you're looking at connecting outer loop to Columbia Road, and then at the southern point, to 83, around where Bridge 4.5 would be constructed.
Road passes it, push back
no,
to
of course,
2021.
our last project that we have also in the development is the study that we have for the Laredo Outer Loop, which is about $140, $80 million construction.
Which is it?
The Laredo Outer Loop.
The outer loop,
That's under
yeah,
study.
okay.
So in some what we got right now, it's, we have projects funded, that are going to let in from now until 2023. We have $345 million right now in mobility,
How much?
345, and about $247 million on rehabilitation and preventive maintenance and safety. That's about $600 million, so we'll be,
This is for the
constructing with-
Laredo, for our city
for
and
Laredo
the immediate
some-
surrounding area.
Correct, and the surrounding areas. Some close to $600 million from now until 2023. And then we also have $437 million under design that, to have those plans ready in case funds becomes available, or also to let after 2023. And also we have the $480 million outer loop, that we're doing the study on.
That's-
Now, how long have we been doing that study?
The study, I think the last schedule we had was anticipating about 12 to 18 months to get all this information and prepare new alignments. Thank you.
So, we never did see any of the alignments for the outer loop, right?
Yes, I don't have the alignments with me, the presentation.
Rebecca, you can email that, the
Sure, we
draft.
can email it. Let me-
Right, we have a draft alignment that was actually,
Was the old
went
one?
under review by the public in the form of public meetings
Well, I know, but I'm saying
11 years ago.
the actual item says status report by TxDOT on the outer loop alignment study.
Oh, no, that was the previous, topic we had. I know what I mentioned is.
I know,
we
but
have-
I'm just saying that was the item.
Right. He just verbally
And,
spoke about the status.
and I think what you're gonna find probably to the east is, you know, there hasn't been a well drilled in the last
10 years.
15 years, I would say. 10 to 15 years. So you're gonna find some wells plugged and abandoned, and so your alignment probably gonna straighten out a little bit instead of having to
Okay.
zigzag around some of these things. And so that's probably gonna help matters. And you could probably actually negotiate to even buy some of those out to be able to straighten it out a little more. So.
Okay, moving on to item E, status report on the.
But I would like to see that alignment, please.
New Year.
Happy New
It's
Year.
been a while.
Mr. Soto.
Good to see y'all.
Rodriguez, welcome.
I'm Ruben Soto, Chairman for the RMA. I think the first thing we're going to talk about is about the infra grant application. There's another round in which the application is due March 4th. Now, I know the bill grant, we didn't get awarded, and I know the city had allocated some funding for that in case it was awarded. So one of the other projects that we talked about, maybe we could apply for, is Loop 20 from International to 59. Well, abbreviated, International to University, because some of the other overpasses will not be ready until 2024. And the project needs to be let by 2021?
Yes, sir.
So the RMA board supports the Loop 20 project for this application. We've been asked by the city to go ahead and conduct the application, prepare the application at our expense. And so we come forward to the MPO board and ask for your vote as to whether it be that project or another project that you want us to apply for that grant. So it's a motion item. And so, you know, if there's any discussion that you would like to have.
Okay, let me ask you this. So the funding that we have for the overpasses, and they go through 2024, I think, was the airport, the last one? Those are just strictly the overpasses?
Yes, sir, they're the overpasses, not the frontage roads.
Not the frontage, so we're still lacking the frontage roads.
We are.
Those overpasses total $97 million.
Is there any, I'm sorry, I know we're off topic here, but I was gonna ask, can we, it seems like the better way to do that would be in order. So if you're gonna do, maybe continue Shiloh and Delmore
Well,
instead
they
of
have
doing.
Ruben, if you want to continue, they have a plan for that.
Okay.
But it wouldn't be the entire corridor, Commissioner, it'd be a portion.
Right, it would include the Shiloh, Del Mar, and University overpasses, and the frontage roads that go along up to that point. And so that way, those projects, if we should get funding, it will be ready to let by 2021. Now, we feel that this is a good project to put forward in the application because, you know, most of the funding is already available there for the overpasses. And if we get to that 50% or more local participation, I think the application looks really good. The RMA will be willing to put their 8.9 million, maybe even round it up to 10. We asked maybe that the city could use that 10 that they were obligated on the bill grant, should that have gone approved. If they could swing that money to this project, to this application, then that's, they'll put it at about 50% or more. I know-
In the bill grant, they had, the city's contribution was gonna be 7.5.
10.5? Well, if there's a way that maybe we could get to that, at least 50% mark, I think the application would be, look pretty good. Now, seeing that the Loop 20 corridor is the second most traveled truck route in the state, I think it just gives it a little bit more weight for approval. In the
Can we
past,
put the difference, if the city, and I'm just, thinking out loud here, we need city council action, but if 7.5, you all put what now? 8?
10,
10? Can you all put the
Well,
difference of 2.5?
I wouldn't promise anything until we find out what the legislature's gonna do on these cap rates,
on the what?
on the property cap rates. Cause if it caps at 2.5%, we're not funding anything. That's just the way it's gonna be. We're done.
Well, this is a good way to leverage,
Yeah.
$10 million compared to what you're getting, which,
You know, there's no question, we need the Loop 20 completed, done with, and I think if we were gonna use bridge funds, to pay for that,
I'm
those
sorry.
third lanes.
Can you, back up a little bit? The project you're suggesting that we use to apply for the infra grant is which one again?
Loop 20 from International to 59. Well, I'm sorry, International
To university.
to University.
Shiloh, Delmore.
Frontage roads and overpasses.
Okay, weren't we just presented with a play-by-play, game plan for the intersections of,
So,
Overpasses only.
for the overpasses?
Right.
Yeah, the overpasses, councilman, would serve as a leverage on the application.
Okay.
So those 3 funded overpasses equal about $62.5 million.
Okay.
So on the application, that would look like the community is leveraging the total project cost.
Gotcha.
With the remaining frontage road portion of that section to be the ask of the
and so
of the
what's the
application.
difference of not just doing the whole thing? Excuse me? What's the difference of just doing the whole
We've got
thing?
no leverage.
No, well, no,
No, you got
talk
$100
about
million
the time
in leverage.
constraints, Tony.
And you got all the right of way, money. So what, you only need the frontage roads.
Antonio Rodriguez, for the record, GEC for the RMA. The Commissioner, in response to your question, the real issue is really timing. If we are so fortunate to be awarded a grant, we have 18 months to actually let the project. And the real challenge we have with the remaining 2 overpasses being at Jackman and Airport is right-of-way acquisition with the UISD Food Processing Center and of course the Armory. And my understanding, and talking to TxDOT, or Representative TxDOT, that is still in very discussion, and there's not a good timeline yet for acquisition of that right-of-way. However, with the first 3 being Shiloh, Del Mar, University, it looks like that's looking very good and definitely a lot cleaner to actually acquire and move forward with. The other good thing about it is that it actually decreases the overall ask a little bit. The big challenge that we've had with doing the gateway application, or the Milo interchange 3569, it's always been the ask, because we were always asked, we were doing the 5 DCs and Loop 20 overpass over 35. We were requesting money for 4 DCs, and that was usually around the range of about a $90 million ask.
How much?
$90 million ask, and the
How much?
participation was a lot less.
Okay, so, I'm sorry. I'm just a little fuzzy here with the medications and stuff, but how much is the frontage roads for the whole frontage road project?
105.
That's what I thought, 105. So we have the funding, it's a separate fund that you have for all the frontage road acquisition, right?
The acquisition is a different funding.
And you have that. We have all the overpasses funded at a certain date. And we need 105 and you're saying 90.
The problem is with the 105, if we were to ask 105 million, we'd get declined because the state of Texas is only allowed to request up to 100 million. So only one.
So we need $6 million.
And the time frame, even if we were to get the infra grant selected a year from now, in 18 months, we still won't have the right of way because we have to move the UISD food kitchen before we even touch it. They have to be operational all year long. And then the armory has to be relocated. I mean, we've already determined that the armory can't stay either because there is a homeland security buffer that
Okay.
we don't meet the minimum.
So,
those are
and there's
2.
no way to structure it where you start at one end, the other. Say
Well,
what?
this would be starting at the north end, working south. And so you'd have the complete segment, frontage roads and overpasses, all the way up to University constructed.
I understand that, I'm just saying like, so what's the section left over then? How much is, of the 105, how much of that is gonna be taken?
Yeah, we'd have
Cause
to.
you're saying he's asking for 90, so I don't know.
Well, that was a previous application.
Right.
In this application, we still have to run the numbers on what the ask is gonna be, but I don't think it's gonna be $90 million.
Well, it can be.
South of 100.
Yes.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Well, it can't be close to 90. I mean, is it 60?
But in past, infra grant applications and fast lane
Is it infra, build, no?
This is
Infra.
infra.
This is infra.
So build is.
In the past applications for, like fast lane and whatever it was called before, the people that got awarded, they had a very high local match, percentage-wise. And so this is, I think this is a great, project.
Percentage-wise, it's gonna be the same percentage.
No.
Not from a local match perspective, because if we're putting the 3 overpasses as part of our local match from the state side, and then
Plus.
10 million from the RMA, and maybe 10 million from Laredo/Wood County, that's a pretty high percentage. That's more than we've ever put in as a local match in any of the applications.
So then you need action on this item, and then you need separately action, as a council, or as a commissioner's court to, add in whatever proportionally we're gonna add in,
Yeah, for,
Strictly gonna be awarded.
yeah,
in the event that it's awarded.
In the,
Gotcha. When it gets awarded, let's be positive.
certainly.
But again, so you don't have any numbers, you don't know, it's gonna be 2/3 of the 100? I mean, you gotta know what it is, I mean, you came up, you're making this proposal,
Well,
you should have some
Texas-
preliminary numbers.
We
Texas
haven't,
don't
we
provide
haven't given those numbers to them yet, Commissioner. That,
But I mean, if it's 105, is everything, and you're basically doing 3/5 of it, right? So, I mean, is that a good ballpark number, or,
just more than 50% of it.
so is it 60%, so we need 60 million,
that'd be great.
huh?
That'd be great if it's only 60 million.
So we're gonna put in 100 and they're gonna ask for 60, or 90, we're putting in 90, basically, I guess, what'd you say was 65 million with the overpasses?
62.5.
Okay, do you get to count the
Plus,
right away?
Yeah.
Do we get to count the right-of-way? Well, we're only asking for construction dollars because infra can only be used for construction.
Do
Can't
we
be
get to
used for
count, so
right-of-way.
as the right of way owner, so we're putting in right of way?
Is it, yeah, is the right-of-way leverage?
No, no.
It's just the other
Infra-
things that you're
infra is for
constructing?
construction.
Okay,
Okay,
got it.
so you got 65 million plus 8 plus,
about
let's
a
just say
local
18.
match of maybe 82 million?
Huh?
A local match of 82 million? That's pretty
To a
good.
$60 million project versus,
Yeah, that's got a lot of leverage.
well, yeah, versus 120 million to 105. Well, it was, all 5 overpasses is 100 something million, isn't it? 99 million? 97 million, plus 8, plus 10.
But we can't, remember, they can't, award money for the road that's not gonna be ready to be let out by 2021, which is the, Joplin Airport section.
Yeah,
That's
I
also
have
the
my,
rest.
the problem.
I have my suspicions on that one.
Well,
I mean, we've been working on this for,
Is this, we're
6
just talking
years
about,
I've been here.
a grant application
Yeah.
though, right? I mean,
yeah,
for,
all we're asking is, which project to come forward. We're probably gonna put an application in anyway, but we want the representatives of this, community to
So
tell
if-
us which project to apply for.
well, this project seems, like a worthwhile endeavor. I mean, I think we would all agree that getting the loop completed sooner rather than later is to our constituents' benefit. I guess that as part of the debate, whether we do frontage roads first versus.
We done everything.
No, they're saying everything, and I wholeheartedly agree. If we can get the 3/5 of it done, then I would do that, but I just, it's not that hard moving the commissary and
But that's,
and the armory, it's just
Right.
not that hard.
but
And,
they're
and of
telling you
course,
that
there's
that
utilities,
there's an issue there
there's
with them.
utilities that have to be moved, that have to be coordinated. They have their own budgets, they have their own
If I may
timelines.
ask, if we do put it all in, as you're saying, what would be the timeline that we need to do? 18 months, I get it, but how long does this take? How long does this application process, and when will we know and all that? How much time do we have in
It's
total?
due March.
It's due March 4th, actually, and of course, as the previous applications, we'd be looking for the city of Laredo to be the main sponsor. But after that, you're
March
probably
1st
looking
or-
about, so we submitted 4th of March, you're looking probably about 6 months after that, on average, that's what we've seen in past history for,
So 6 months, that puts us,
and then you got another 18 months after that, so you're basically looking at about 2 years.
so we have a 2-year
Tony.
timeline to try to move those things.
We're 2021 already.
In a quick summary, what is it that you want to submit? Can you go just briefly the numbers that you want to submit this grant? The total dollar amount?
The total dollar amount,
Yeah.
actually, gonna
That's
get
what we're
with,
working on.
Yeah, I was really gonna get with,
But
your
but
team
you're
on that.
asking the county to leverage how much? 10 and 10? Or the MPO?
At the moment, all we're really asking the MPO is their blessing on moving forward with this application for this particular project. Or would they prefer just a straight resubmittal of the I-69, I-35 interchange, which was the last version?
You only do one?
Well, it makes sense just to do one, because it's not gonna award two to one region.
What? Sorry?
We will not award two to one region.
No, but I'm saying, can you put in both applications?
You
They,
don't,
Well,
they,
Let me just back up.
Yeah,
Again, the 18 months is really the criteria that is gonna be very difficult to meet if they put in the entire segment of US 59 Loop 20. Because, again, armory, food kitchen, maybe a hotel that's further north of that, still yet to be determined, that's just north of Jackman.
How can that be yet to be determined though? I don't understand.
Because
it.
of, the right-of-way and coordination and how parking can be reconfigured. There's land planners that have to look at how to reconfigure parking, if that can be done. But once
Let me-
right-of-way is acquired, then utilities have to be moved.
Yeah, well,
That's a lengthy process there too, so
but that's in any letting, utilities have to be moved.
it's a, excuse me?
In any letting, utilities have to be moved all the time.
Yeah, it's,
That's part of the project.
no, it is part of the project, but, just from a construction standpoint, the issues that we had with, just the 59 down there where we're at by the office, by the loop, just getting out there and getting utilities out there and moved, we had to pick them up and move them twice, which was an extra cost. We actually had to pay them to do that. There's a process of getting some of those, utilities repaid. We have to go through the lengthy process of that as well. Not only that, but then we have to deal with the cities and the acquisition of right
Is
of ways.
Nathan left? 'Cause what was the original letting of airport?
about a year ago.
Huh?
Yeah,
Oh,
a couple
probably
years
something
ago.
like 19, it was not realistic. It was not realistic.
Okay. But at some point, more than a year ago, probably more than 2 years ago, they said, oh, we're gonna have these issues.
Yeah, let me ask you this, so your point is if we can, which I doubt, but if we can include the whole project,
I'm just saying, submit 2 applications, one, the whole project and one.
Commissioner, on 2 submissions, in the past, one of the reasons why, in the past, we had 3 applications submitted. Or it was used to be fasting or whatever. And one of the comments that they made up there at the federal level is that just submit one and make it big. And that was one of the things that
He's telling you, make it big.
and I've never seen in my short history since 2014, one area get more than 1 grant.
I'm not saying we're gonna get both of them, because you're not gonna get both of them. You only get one or the other.
You're competing against yourself.
Yeah, that's fine.
But which is a better project? That's the one you have to go put forward.
We did get a lot of blowback.
I don't mind competing against myself, I'll do it all day long.
but let me ask you this.
Leverage.
Yeah, let me ask you this.
But with regard to that question, which one of those 2, the clover leaves and all the bells and whistles around Loop 20 and I-35, or the overpasses and Carnage roads up and down Loop 20?
We have more leverage over here.
My opinion is the Loop 20 is more leverage than the direct connectors.
Because you fund it.
So right now, there's
yes.
no money for the direct connectors, the 4 direct connectors.
Just one.
Yeah,
decent.
but the 4 remaining.
Bet on the
there's no-
horse that's most likely to win the race.
Yes.
And are we willing to take the risk that if we submit the entire project, are we willing to take the risk of not having the airport in Jackman ready to go 18 months after award and have to give the money back?
And I
I-
think
That-
our
that- I
portion
mean,
is
that-
gonna be
that
more
was-
than 10 million.
That
And I don't know whether the
boggles my
city will
mind
either.
to this day.
Our portion could be more than 10 million, 10 and then 10, and I don't think it'll cover the 50%, right?
For the direct connectors?
No,
We have 100, we have 97 million in overpasses. With 8 million from them,
The
you're
percentage is
105.
similar.
The whole project's 105. So you're at 50% right
So
there.
without 10 million each,
Without
we'll
any,
cover it?
without any.
Yeah.
No, they'll expect something.
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you're at 50% funding, 105 versus 105. So,
But there's
But
two
the reality-
overpasses that we believe we're not gonna be able to meet the criteria of an infra grant to get those.
well, I understand,
delaying
I understand,
18
but what I'm
months.
saying, it seems,
The 18-month timeframe.
That's.
what seems to
criteria
me
that's
is, I don't know, maybe the armory, we said, okay, there's a problem with the armory, there's a problem with the, and let's put it on the back burner. Because we've known about this issue for how long?
But we won't be able to resolve it today.
Yeah,
So we're not resolving it, that's the
I
problem.
think our,
No,
Mayor, if I will, our project manager, Anna Duncan, has been deeply involved with this project for years, and I think she can provide a little bit more insight.
Unfortunately, yes. Anna Duncan with TechStot. Those two projects, those two locations are not backburner. They are the top priority right now, trying to get that right away.
So what do we have to do?
What do we have to do?
What do we
as-
do? We already tell them we're buying it, right?
Yes.
You said you gotta move, I mean, we're buying you out completely, right? Because you have to buy the whole property, right?
Have right-of-way mapping being done, the appraisals are already, the appraisers have already been contracted to do that work, to get that, so all the wheels are in motion to do that.
Right now, they've been contracted to do it, but haven't done it.
No, because we have to have everything in order to be able to move to that. We cannot get an appraiser on board, or the right-of-way division cannot get an appraiser on board until we have certain steps done. So that's.
But, Anna,
I would just hate to not get any money
But
at
then
all
we went-
because we bet on.
how many years ago we said, all right, there's a problem with these guys? At that point, didn't you get an appraiser?
We can't get we did not have the final schematic at that point.
Okay.
There's
So
a
until you got the final schematic,
From here on out, if everything goes well, if I may interject, what is the time frame?
For acquisition of right away, I can't speak on that. That would be the right away division to give you the specifics on how long that would take.
Does Kennedy speak,
just
what is
submit
speak
the
on
three
a
and be
ballpark?
done with it, yeah. This is-
I'm hoping it would be before 2021, but we cannot start moving on the utility relocations until we have acquired that property. The big one that's really critical is the fact that we cannot get onto that property to move utilities until we move that kitchen, the UISD kitchen. So that's the one that, I mean, perhaps we can, and let's hope we do, but I wouldn't bet on it to give away, how much money are we talking about? To take nothing over possibly.
No, I
6
understand
million,
that, but I'm
forget
just,
that.
but,
I'd rather have, like you said, show me how to build one bridge, and we're trying to.
no, I know, but I'm just saying, how long ago we knew we had to buy the whole kitchen? There's no getting around it, you're gonna knock, the
3
kitchen's
years
gone.
ago.
But you can't do it until you have the
If we
schematic.
pull up the.
No,
map-
why? You have to buy the whole thing.
I'm sure there's some obscure text dot
You
regulation
you can't demo half the building, you had to buy the whole
Oh,
property.
no, we're completely
Yeah.
over the entire building regardless. That's the location of the frontage road, sir.
So I'm saying, so it makes no sense to me. And I know you all have different rules to operate under, but
And it kind of reminds me, we've had this conversation here 2 or 3 times.
that's what I'm saying, we've had this conversation, I wanna say 4 years ago we had this conversation. And I said, we're gonna buy the whole building, move them.
Yeah, for now, and I get the sense that.
Cause the
they're not
schematics
ready,
makes
yeah.
no difference on condemning the building or not, because you knew the whole building's gotta go.
So let me say, if we do go on
We
that,
are moving towards that. That's exactly what we're doing.
So-
And it is,
Are we moving towards that in 19?
in dog
Or
years.
21? Or 24? We have a proposed let now for what, 22 or 24?
Airport has been at 24.
Huh?
Airport is 24.
24.
yeah, but keep in mind, we did get that monies for the 3 lanes at the Mines Road and all the other projects at 35, so it,
Yep.
I mean, it.
Submit the 3.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
you said that, if I may, you said that whether we do this project or some other project, what are the other projects that you guys have contemplated
Well,
utilizing
the
this grant?
the remaining 4 direct connectors on the Milo interchange.
Those are the only 2 options?
That should probably be ready to let, and that kind of magnitude by 2021, yes. The other ones are smaller projects, or they're not ready to be let.
But the problem with the connectors, we don't have the leverage that we have over.
We don't have,
Yeah.
so then we have to do this. I
So-
understand your concern,
Leverage is a
but let's
big
get
key.
some of it done, and then let's move on to the next one.
Do the 3 then.
By the way, I echo his frustration like 100%. I just finally am so relieved to not be the bad cop today and sitting here being good cop for once, and it's great. And maybe I can get some of that medication for the next meeting.
So we have to move on this?
Yes, so do we have?
Yeah. So what sort of a motion would you like to see?
Would be, which project that you want the RMA to assist the city in.
Yeah, I think the Loop 20, but.
It's the three overpasses.
Yeah, we're gonna split the money, the county and.
There's no money to split. You already have, you're at 60% funding.
Oh, just a little bit, just a little bit. I know you speak for the whole commissioners court.
You have, how much is 65 million?
62.5.
You got 62.5 plus 8, you're at 70 million. And I wouldn't think the frontage roads are gonna cost you more than 60. If you're only doing 2/3.
And you're only saying if,
3/5.
if it's needed, right, if the grant is awarded, then what would be a proportional contribution from the city and the county?
Well, we usually use a 60-40 split, but, you know, the county.
60, what do you mean 60/40?
You know, basically the percentage of the tax rates, you know, that's what we usually.
Let me just kind of clarify here, that this is a city, this will be a city submitted application. RMA is just doing the legwork and getting the application ready for the city, so it's not their application, it's the city of Laredo's
Yeah, but you're contributing, you said 10 million?
Right.
Yeah, so I guess there's a difference of 2.5, so.
Come on, give them
You're
your
already,
2.5.
you're already at least 50% funding.
Yeah, but we want to make the best case that we can.
Exactly.
Yeah, so there won't be any doubt, we'll get the money, we'll get the.
Prepaid revenue. I can't commit to anything.
But I'll make do at least
Our
try.
recommendation was to do those three.
And to recommend to your colleagues at the commissioners court 2.5. It's just a recommendation.
They may not accept it, but at least try.
At least it has your support.
No, it doesn't. I'm telling you, I'm not for anything until I find out what the revenue caps are gonna do.
He's not budgeted, Mayor.
No, I can see why, because they're solely dependent on property taxes.
We only have property taxes.
We have the bridge, we have others, so.
We have $80 million in salaries and we only collect $76 million in property taxes.
Mayor, may
Why
I
can't we give a
propose
raise?
that
Okay,
we
throw that.
vote to allow the RMA to prepare the application for the city of Laredo? And then, a future decision will decide, and again, the match is gonna be a budget page within that application. And that will be to be determined to see
By
how
council,
much of a local match from the city and the county, will be part of the application. But again, that's a budget sheet.
Second.
And if we can move forward with that.
Okay, is there a second? You can make that motion?
I make the motion that that we allow the RMA to move forward with the development of the infra grant application for the city of Laredo. Local matches from the city of Laredo and Webb County will be determined at a later date to be included within the budget page portion of the application.
And for the
Seconded
project,
by-
can you specify the project?
By Commissioner Alden.
And then the project, I guess we will vote, but I guess the proposed project will be the US 59 upgrade to I-69 standards between International and University to include the overpasses of Shiloh, University Del Mar, and the frontage roads.
To interstate standards,
To
whatever it
interstate
requires, whatever it requires.
Yes, sir.
So my second is as amended there.
A second discussion. None heard, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? None, motion carries unanimously, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Congratulations,
We'll put our best foot forward.
Okay.
Real quick, just.
And thank you so much for your collaboration and your willingness to help out.
Thank you too for all of you. Next thing is the advanced funding agreement for the North Laredo Webb County Transportation Planning Study was approved today by the RMA board at the meeting today. And once we have that signed, incorporated in agreement, then I could sign it via DocuSign. Once it's executed and signed by both parties, which is TxDOT and the RMA, then we need to send a local fund match, as is coming from the RMA's funds, of $10,000. And then a federal letter of authority will be requested from FHWA to authorize use of the federal funds for the project. Estimated work authorization by the RMA board will be within 60 days. The next project update is Los Presidentes Agreement. The city has been given a copy of this agreement for their staff and legal department to review. The agreement was approved by the Webb County Drainage District at their January 17, 2019 board meeting, and they formally committed $600,000 for the project. So we'll await the city's staff and legal department to iron out the differences, and when that thing is signed, and we can go ahead and go forward with that project. Killam Turning Lanes Agreement. The city has been given also a copy of this agreement for their staff and legal department to review, and we're waiting their suggestions.
How
and
long ago
amendments.
did you all give that to us?
Is it December?
Yes, we submitted it, or actually, 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Yeah, this is Killam Boulevard, turning lanes.
Don't turn lanes.
Yeah, onto Mines Road, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
vice
from.
versa, to and from, yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I believe we submitted it to city staff, and they are still reviewing it.
No, no,
unless
no.
they have-
However, we didn't actually really get it until, what was it, middle of last week, something like that. It was sent to sort of upper management, their
That
inbox,
lasts a while.
so the staff actually received it, what was it, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that?
Last week when you.
Somewhere
followed up
like
with
that.
Okay.
We've already, gotten some initial review from our legal department. We've sent it out to our engineering folks and traffic folks for them to review and provide comments also. So their comments are due tomorrow?
Okay, and, initial comments, observations?
Legal department had some questions on whether the RMA's consultant would be available during construction phase services, lighting, sort of lighting issues, those sorts of issues. And then this is just from what I remember her telling me last Friday over the phone. She's gonna do a formal write-up that she'll submit, and then
This is from
we
the- this is
anticipate
from the,
having a meeting with them and, having our questions answered.
And this is from the city attorney's office?
Yes,
And who's the point of contact there?
Lisa Paul?
Okay, great. And you think we'll have this in front of council for final approval? If you had to guess, I'm not gonna hold you to it, but just
Monday.
más o menos.
Tonight?
No, not tonight. We had hoped to bring it for tonight's meeting, so I would hope the next meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you, Ms. Kevin.
Thank you.
That's it, unless you have any other questions.
Yeah, I do, just for the record, I have accepted Mr. Lamadia's resignation from the RMA and appointed Mr. George Beckelheimer, and he has been accepted to Commissioner's Court.
Very good, thank you very much.
So he'll be,
Can you, please, send him to my office, and, because there's a lot of requirements that he has to meet,
okay,
so we won't have a, same problem we had a few years ago. Appreciate it.
all right.
Thank you.
Any other further business for this commission? And if not, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Thank you.
Motion a second to adjourn?
Yes.
Yeah.
Seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.